All right, so welcome back if you're joining me. And tonight I'm going to be picking up where we left off. So as a quick recap, we're using the Cisco Identity Services engine that I've reserved in the DevNet sandbox. My name's John Capobianco, and we're automating different file types from the payload. Now we started with, and we're still on, the MNT version, meaning the version of ISE. A good place to start, and that payload is XML. So we're using a dictionary to turn that into a JSON dictionary, and then we're using Jinja2 template and other, non-Jinja2 template methods of creating different files from that GET from the API. So what we're going to be adding next is what's known as a rich table. And, if you go to rich, read the docs.io, it's under tables. There's a whole article here. And I'm just going to basically follow these instructions. So I've written some code that we're going to merge in here. And let's make a branch. Let's do it another way. Let's make a branch in the Git repo. And let me make sure that I've actually pushed this code. I have not. So I'm going to say working MNT version base BRDs. And let's push that code in so we know we're at a working state and we have our build for our PyPy repo. And let's go into our repositories, and now we're going to make a new branch here called rich, and then we're going to go back into our VS Code and do a get fetch and change into the rich branch, and now let's develop in our rich branch. So I already have some code here, and I'm going to make it on a little easier than referencing another repo on another screen. But what we need to do is bring in rich console, and we're going to put this at the bottom here, and rich table, because we want to use the table. So then what we're going to do is say, because we don't want to just print this to the screen, we want to give the user a file type. So we're going to give them an SVG file. So let's add, after MP3 in our file lists, SVG. And we haven't done all yet, but we'll come to that. And what we're going to do is copy and change. So let's just take the JSON file and let's call this SVG file. And we'll come back to this. We have to add our logic at the top here for our file type picker. So else if self.fileType equals SVG, self.svg file. We're going to pass that the parse JSON. So now for the SVG file, I'm going to take my code here and we're going to adjust it accordingly. So we're going to add my existing code, and I'm going to get rid of the with open here, but I'll leave the click, and actually let me bring all of this over. Probably a faster way to do that, but that's okay. Okay, so what we're going to do here is say if the self.api is version, we're going to say ISE MNT version API as the title of our table. And then let's quickly refer to our Jinja template for CSV. So we have product name. So we're going to add a column called product name. And let's just give this a style of bold blue. And then we can do type of node in bold green. And we can do version in bold green. Now we could add logic here and interrogate that and say if, depending on the value of the field, right, make it red or green, but we'll make it green and I'll just center justified. And then what we have to bring in is our, so, right, it's going to be parse JSON product and at name and parse JSON product type of node and product version. Right, so those three values. You get some water. Excuse me. So those are our columns, and those are the headers for this table. And now we're going to add the row, which we just filled in from the variables from the JSON payload that's in parsed version, parsed JSON. And we're going to print that as a table center justified and then to the console. And then we're going to save the SVG as the API.svg with a title. And we're going to say SVG file created at self.api.svg. So let's try this. And I have to reset my environment variables and activate my source identity bin. Activate. See isecycle source isecycle Python 3. Actually, let me set up the environment variable. So export URL equals username is admin, export password as school12345, and then we're going to say Python 3 isecycle, and we want version, and we want an SVG. Strings must be so it didn't like the logic row. Is it the name thing here? Product. I'm kind of stumped here. I don't know why it's not. Hey Dan, I'm just trying to make rich tables here, and I can get it if I don't include. I'm not sure why I'm not able to key into this with my Python. It should be JSON, and I think I have all my keys correct. But it's complaining about string indices must be integers. Is it just as simple that I'm not using double quotes? I hope not. I don't think so. See, so why doesn't it like... So I have to do... I'm kind of stuck here. Yeah, it looks to be a string. Well, it's string. Although I thought I'd already done that earlier in the code. String indices must be integers. Sorry I've gone silent here. I'm trying to figure this out and talk to people. Yeah, so that's better. Now I can do... I guess my example code was already a dictionary. I took that from something. There we go. Thanks, Danny. I appreciate the pointer there. My example code looks like this was already, this payload parse JSON was already a dictionary. So anyway, sorry for the silence there for a while, but we have it working. Now let me just see if I save the file and everything. But it prints this nice rich table on the screen from the API that would otherwise be XML. I'm still printing the JSON payload here, which I could maybe remove. I could add a flag to say if they didn't pick file type table, because it's a little bit redundant. So maybe we could add that code here. If self dot file type does not equal table, so let's try that again. And SVG, not table. Version SVG, and now it just prints the table. Alright, so that's a good breakthrough. Thanks again, DevNet Dan. That's why I appreciate doing this live. I scratched my head, and yeah, I relied too much on my example, which was already a dictionary. So anyway, that's a good learning experience. If you get that error, you have to make a new variable and load the string so that it becomes a dictionary that then we can Pythonically break into. So thank you again. So now let's take a look at what the file we get. We should have an SVG file, which is code. But if we open up this in our browser, we have a nice centered SVG file that we can actually copy and paste and work with. So this is really nice output. It's centered. It's drawn the table nicely. We have the titles. So now the next step is going to be adding a PNG file, which is just one more step and a new library that we have to add. So we're going to go to our list of file types and say PNG. Go to our logic here, say elif self file type equals PNG self dot PNG file parse JSON, and we're going to add a new library up here, Cairo SVG. Where did I get this code from? I have to check my repo, another repo very quickly. Just to see what we need to bring in for this. So it's Cairo SVG. And we're going to add that with poetry add Cairo SVG, and that'll update our TOML file with Cairo SVG. And then we have, if the file type is PNG, we're just going to find a small one here, the JSON one. And say if it's a PNG, right? Call the SVG file function and make that SVG, and then run the Cairo SVG to PNG for the same file name, api.svg, write to api.png, and I don't need this with open, and I'm going to say png file created at png. Now, poetry is just fantastic. I absolutely love poetry. Make a new project, update some settings, start adding your dependencies, integrate your README file, and get a token. I like the token-based approach of updating my repository. Make sure your file name is available first, though, your project name, before you start talking about how your new project's going to go if you don't have the name secured. Okay, so let's try this. Now, we could clean up and delete the PNG file, or the SVG, the source SVG file. But for now, let's just give them, they'll get both files. So let's see if this will work with version PNG. And it prints the table. Yeah, a little bit of redundancy here, I guess. I could add an else or here, or does not equal PNG. Is it just or like that? Compounded or. I want a compounded one. I guess I could do it that way. Where was I? At the or statement here. I'll come back to that. For now, I can print that. What does the PNG look like? Let's see. Yeah, so there we have a nice. I get sidetracked with little things here, but here's the PNG file, which we can attach to tickets or to, and it's not quite 100% the table, but rendering, but it's pretty good. That's pretty good for a PNG from Rich. So that's that is rich tables to SVG into PNG. We could probably we already have to HTML from the JSON into a data table. But we might be able to say like, I don't know, rich table or rich HTML. Debatable, because I think that the similar method that I've done here to make a PNG file out of that SVG, I believe there's also a way to save it to, like this is to SVG from Will's blog, Will McGugan. Hope I'm saying that right. But he's the author of which, and there's you know, to save it to SVG. But SVG opens in the browser, so I think I'll leave it at that. Now let's make some Mermaid files, and I am going to reference some code in another repository. I'm not going to be copying anything, but I'm just going to be referencing the main structure. So let's start with a flowchart, and so we're going to add that to our file lists. So let's start at the top this time, right? So we're going to say else if self.filetype equals flowchart self.flowchart file with the parse JSON, and we're going to copy one of the ones with a template, so the CSV. Actually, we're going to copy the, yeah, it doesn't matter. We're going to copy the Markdown file instead because it's already .md. So these are Markdown files when I say Mermaid files, or when I say flowcharts. It's kind of like the mark maps where we need to render them, but it's just Markdown. So flowchart file, and this is going to be a flowchart template using ISE, and we'll call this Mermaid flowchart.j2. Finish up our copy paste here and renaming of variables. Flowchart output, which is what we're going to write, and we're going to call this flowchart.markdown. Call this flowchart mermaid flowchart file created at flowchart.md. So let's make our template. And what I like to reference is one of my other templates. And we can look at, say, the mind map because there is some relationships here. So what we're going to do is take our if-else logic, and because this is a mermaid file, we're going to add 3 ticks and the word mermaid, and then we're going to call this a flowchart which goes from left to right, so LR. And then we start to make our relationships. So what we can do is have the like sort of like this, and then our product name, which has a relationship to the type of node, which has a relationship to the version, and we can render that. Again, it's there's no real flow here, but that would be the flow, is our API to the name of the product, to the type of the node, to the version. And we got to finish closing this out with 3 more ticks. And that's all we should need to do for this. So let's try it. So we're going to run our program, and we're going to say version flowchart. Oh, did I not add it to my, I didn't add that to my options. Flowchart. But that's actually a good little example. If your user picks or mistypes one of the file types, it's actually not going to take it an error. It's going to error up front because it's not part of our click.choices. Now the only thing is that in help, right, the choices start to become very long. If I do -- help, right, they sort of start to become multi-line, which isn't the worst, but just be careful. But I still like to provide the users just restricting them to the choices. So version, flowchart, and we have this flowchart. Now, did it render properly? No. So there's a problem in here. Maybe the spaces, or maybe the numbering. Let's just see. It's been a while since I've made one of these, so it's not that. Let me just see here. Is it? I think it's, yeah, it's the spacing in my, these have to be tight against each other. Like I said, I have, it's been a while since I've done some of these mermaid files, and you'll have to bear with me. Flowchart. Okay, so it is the spacing. So what we're going to do is adjust the spacing here to make this underscores, and under the product name we are going to replace spaces with underscores. So that's a Jinja 2 filter that we can add to our variable to strip out the spaces. And let's try this again. Flowchart. Hey Stephen, thanks for joining. I'm just adjusting my screen. I'm referencing some repository code to, so now what does this look like? And there we go. So let me make some space to show you this. And right, so we have this flowchart. Now that might not seem impressive, but when we do things like neighbors or the relationship and policies or things like that of that nature, when we add for loops and start looping over things, it's going to draw a full flowchart. And again, you saw how easy this was. We add 3 ticks mermaid, we connect our dots with a and there's other syntaxes. Let me show you. I didn't call this up. I should have done this. You know, if we just Mermaid Markdown, it will take you to the IO page. And right, we just did flowcharts. And there's all kinds of options. This text is in the box. Okay, I see they have spaces here. So we could have handled it that way. We can go top down, left, right. We can put different shapes, do different things. So, right, the different arrows. So maybe I don't want both directions on the arrows. Or maybe I just want straight lines. I sort of like doing it the way I did it because I like the way it renders with the arrows in both directions. But again, that's up to your discretion and your flowchart. Okay, so now that we're on a roll, let's add more mermaid files. So that was flowchart, and the next one I'm going to do is a class diagram. So let me just call it my reference. And I know what I need to replace. So what I'm going to do is copy my flowchart and rename it class. And I'm going to add else if self.filetype equals class self.class file parse JSON, and we're going to just copy our flowchart file, rename it to class file, right, make our updates, call our new template, which is going to be mermaid class, update our output variable name, so yeah, no problem, Stephen. I'm happy to talk about that as I go here. So what inspired me to do this particular thing for ICE is that I really wanted, I like CLIs, I like commands using the keyboard, using structured data, using CSV files. So that's where it really started, was just getting CSV files from network state. Let's call it network state. Now that can be anything, right? That can be from an API, could be from a PyTS parse show command. And then, honestly, once I got that, the CSV, everything else is just another template. The Markdown file, the HTML file, whatever, all these different formats you're seeing me go along, they're really just another template or another library in Python. So it's not up to me to judge if people want SVG files or PNG files or an audio file, or right, like whatever file you want, we can easily make it with a little bit of code. And maybe you'll find a certain type more valuable than others. I'm a big fan of choice and just the art of the possible. Like by the time we're done with the Mermaid files, we're going to be up to quite a few file types. We could even add things like send this data to whatever file type you made, attach it to a WebEx message, right? Like we can go pretty far with just a little bit more code. I just happen to have enough experience where I can start being more creative with the code and with automation versus I'm still learning it or I'm still getting a grasp on it. It's not about being any better or worse than anyone. It's more that I have the experience level now that it feels like whatever I think I can do with code, I can actually make it possible with a little bit of struggle. So we're going to call this class, and we're going to call this class, and this here class. I think that's all we need to do here. Yeah, all right. So, oh, and I have to add it to this list here. Class. And now this is again Mermaid, but instead of a flow left to right, this is going to be a class diagram. And our class is going to be the product name, and we're going to replace those spaces still. And then and then what we do is open up more logic here and close the logic to contain the members of this class. So what we can say is type of node and version. And let's give this a dry run. I think this might work. So version class. Oh, I have a mistake somewhere. Where's selfie come from? Version class. Okay, so it rendered. The code looks like the way I want it to render, and there we go. So now we have a class diagram which has the name of the product name and the type of node and the version in a class diagram. So there are more types of diagrams from Mermaid that we can do. So that was flowchart and class. Oh yeah, we can do the graph too. There's another thing we can do maybe a little bit later. So I don't think a pie chart's going to be worth it in this, but there is a relationship diagram. So what we can do is add, there are pie charts, by the way, for this. I just don't think that, right, version doesn't really have enough numerical values to make a decent pie chart. But there are pie charts available. So what we're going to do is relationship. Whoops. Relationship file. Parse JSON. And we're going to just, again, repeatable code that we know works. This is the class file. So now we're going to move on to the relationship file. Relationship output, relationship J2 file that we have to make, relationship markdown, relationship file, relationship markdown, and we need to make that template. And we're going to copy the, it doesn't really make a difference which one we copy here. Let's copy the class diagram. And instead of a class diagram, now this one's going to be an ER diagram where we have our host name, or our name of our product, and what we're going to do is a pipe, a small o, 2 dashes, a pipe, and then actually I think I can keep, oops, I think I can keep type of node as long as I have it with underscores, and then the value without a colon. With a colon that says version with an underscore here. Do I need an underscore there as well? Let me just see what this renders as. I'm not 100% sure if what the exact syntax is, but we're going to try a, oh, I didn't add it to the list, did I? No. Relationship. Oh, I have a typo. Oh, I see. I think I see maybe the problem. I didn't open up the logic. I have to have on the other side of the pipe. I think I need logic there. Well, I hope you learn something or pick up at least some ideas. I'm struggling with the syntax here. I think that might be right, but it doesn't quite. Hmm. Yeah, these are a little more tricky. Pretty sure I had it working though in my other code. I know I have it working in other code, but I'm just trying to see what I'm doing wrong here. It looks like that's what it's supposed to be though. Hmm. Let's see if I can copy some working code in and just replace some of these values. So let me put my, doesn't really matter which one. Still nothing. Well, this is what they're supposed to look like. They'll render in a second. They're not rendering anymore. I wonder if something has changed. These used to render on here. That's not a good sign. I wonder if they've updated something in the way this is done. That's not good. Well, what about my other ones? No, see, okay, see, so this is what they're supposed to look like. What am I doing differently here? Mermaid ER diagram. Name. Pipe the open code. Okay, let's see. I don't want to get too hung up on this, but I should be able to make them work. I've done it in the past. Just missing something with the syntax. Yeah, see, that even doesn't like that either. Okay, I think I just have to double up the I think I'm getting closer. Let's see what this looks like. Hey everybody. Sorry, I'm really stuck on this and being quiet. I just can't quite see where I'm going wrong. The hard-coded one from my other repo is obviously working. So what code was that? Yeah, so that shows CDP neighbor relationship. So if we go to my code, relationship, show CDP neighbors. Take version and hard code the version. And okay, so here what I want to have is the host names only in here. How many times? One time. Alright, so this is going to be hard coded to say ISE MNT version API. And then my first key, and how many in there twice. Okay, so I need to replace that with product name. And we're going to replace any spaces just in case that's a problem. A problem with that. Okay, and then this, I want it to be the node. Type of node. Alright, now I don't know, let's see. That's about as we know that worked from the hard-coded example. Hey, ta-da! I still don't see what I was doing wrong, but clearly I was doing something wrong. So, sorry, that took a lot more time than I thought, but here we go. Now we have all that for this, but it is worth having the relationship diagram. This is good for interfaces and counters and things of that nature, or CDP neighbors, or whatever relationship you want. Our relationship is a type node 2 on the Cisco Identity Services Engine. Okay, version's not showing up though. I should have a version showing up in here. Is it because of the decimals? Yeah, I'm looking for something like this. Isn't that funny? What am I missing now? Okay, so it has to start with a character, it looks like. Yeah, okay. So if I change this to be V1. Okay, alright, well that's funny. That is tricky. So now I'm just going to say V here. And let's regenerate it and try it again. And the decimals going to be a problem? Yes, they are. All right. Okay, we're still chipping away at this. But what we can do here is add a filter that says replace dots with underscores. Keystroke error there. Hey, there we go. Okay, so that's the relationship diagram. And there are other, yeah, I did get it. So there are other diagrams. Let me just check my list here. So we have covered class diagrams, flowcharts. This doesn't make a good pie chart, relationship, and there's a state diagram we can make. So we're going to grab the state diagram and add that next. And we can do self.state file. And we're going to copy our latest mermaid and call this state file. State state. 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 And we're going to make a new Jinja template for our state diagrams, and we can copy, I don't know what the closest one to a state diagram is. Let's just grab one here, state for CDP neighbors. And this is sort of what they look like, what they render as. So let's grab one and repurpose it for our nodes. Okay, so we have the state diagram from left to right, and here we're going to hard code in ISE version API, which goes to the product name, oh hang on, I made a mistake here. I've just copied over, I want to be in this one. Sorry about that. ISE version API, which goes to the name, and the name goes to the type of node, and this type of node has the version, I believe this is correct. I'm not too sure. Let's see how it works out. I think I don't need the V here. Maybe I do. Maybe just to be safe, we'll put V. Oh, and I haven't finished off the code. I have to add state. Yeah, I'm going to try. I did some streaming last night. I'm doing some streaming tonight. I'm going to try to make it as regular as I can. I don't know about a fixed schedule yet. But whenever I'm writing code like this for my free time, I'll definitely just turn up the stream. Or, you know, I'll be doing more public work now that my internet connection is so much better. So let's do a state diagram. And let's see. No, okay, so I have a syntax error. It looks like okay, so there's a problem here. I thought so. I was sort of changing something. What does that look like in the working code? I think I need the word state, maybe? Yeah, I need to put the word state in. Where did I put that in? After the type of node. That's the relationship. I need the state. Oh, sorry, the dog's barking. So here I need to put state of type of node. Yeah, and then put the version in. Yeah, there we go. So now we have this state diagram of the Identity Services Engine version. Okay, so I think that's it for the Mermaid classes. Yeah, state is the last one. So what we can do next is, so that's rich tables to SVGs, and what we can do next, I hadn't planned on it, but it's still pretty early. Well, it's 7 o'clock. Let me add one more file type and one more capability from my PyETS. And what we're going to do is make network graphs. And let me just quickly check the code here, how I do that again. This might take me a second to figure out real quickly. But what we can do is, let's do that. So I'm going to go to my PyAts code and just check the let me just check for a graph. Self.graph file. Oops. So I have to make two functions. Alright, so let me just grab some code here. And what we'll do is make network graphs. Just to wrap things up tonight. And I'll have to work backwards. There's two classes that we need. A graph file and a graph CSV. And I need in pandas and network X libraries from that code. So I need to bring in these two, and I should be able to go from there. So what I'm going to be bringing in is network X as NX and pandas as PD. So let me do my poetry add network X and poetry add pandas. And then I just have to adjust this code a little bit. So we're going to add a new file type called graph. I have to add that here. If self.filetype equals graph, self.graph file, parse JSON, and then graph file is going to I'm going to bring in OS as well, import OS. So graph file is going to hand off to graph CSV file, and this CSV file is going to need a Jinja template, and this is going to be API equals self.api. We don't need the host name. And then we're going to make a new temporary file. break not working. Well, because I'm in a for loop. Yeah, and I'm not in a for loop here, so I don't need the break. So create the graph, and this is going to be self.api graph CSV, and this is going to be ICE graph CSV. And then when I come back here, network is not defined. PyViz. So I missed the library maybe? Poetry add PyViz. And we're going to call this API graph. And we're going to clean up and remove the API graph CSV file because we don't need it and we just want to give them a network graph. So now I have to template this and read the CSV API graph. So I need to just quickly check what this graph Jinja2 template looks like. It's just the date, yeah, so it's just like a normal CSV file. But do I see. So what I need is source, target, and weight at the top of this. And then I put in my logic and my CSV. And I believe that's what I need to do. So let's try this now, and I'll show you what I mean by a network graph. So the graphs I'm doing now, Stephen, so I'm just catching up, are, you'll see them, they're like 3D interactive HTML pages. Oh, hang on. Host name. I got something, yeah, here. It's self.api graph HTML. All that build up, but you'll see in just a second, Stephen, what I mean by a network graph. It's pretty neat. All right, so then okay, so something didn't work because it didn't. And it's because I didn't return from the function, maybe. So here's the graph, and we open that in a browser, and it's not quite there. And then all of the settings, but the page didn't, template's not right. But we're close. So this worked, it's just the, oh, hang on, did I even finish the template? Yeah, I don't, yeah, hang on. I accidentally left the header row in of my original CSV file. No, it's still not quite there. Source target weight, and then okay, let me copy one. I think yeah, I'm not quite there yet. I can't just dump in the CSV file. Hang on, let me copy one. So we have our host, our list, and then the number, right? So we're going to have, yeah, I'm sorry, I know what I'm doing now. ISE MNT version API with that as a 1, and then this with a 2, that with a 2. And we can add, I think I can do, well, let's just do it like this for now, and then I'll add some text, some labels, version, graph, that's a little better, that's better. So now we can add text. Right, there's the center of it, and then we have our identity services engine, and let me add some labels. I'll be right back. Gonna have to wrap things up soon. I gotta take my dog out, so hang on, sorry about that. Now that I put the labels on, what does this look like? Right, so now we have our labels. and we can add arrows. So it's hard because of my screen resolution, but we have lots of different options here. Colors, arrows, borders, the physics, lots of stuff. So that's a network graph, that's rich tables, and that's Mermaid for the MNT version API. I still have to get to the ERS APIs and the Open APIs, but I think I'm going to stop there tonight. It's about 7 o'clock. I've been going for about an hour and a half, and thanks for joining, and I hope you picked up some new tricks and some new tools. So what I'm going to do is say poetry version patch minor. I think I just say poetry version patch, and that's going to increment it. I'm going to delete my original build, update my init file, and do poetry build, poetry publish, underscore underscore token, and then go get my PyPy token. And now that's available. And let me go ahead and set up a pull request, adding rich tables, SVGs, PNGs, Mermaid files, and network graphs. Okay, so this is all up pretty soon in the repo. There's the pull request, and I'm going to pull this in, tested, merge that branch, confirm the merge, and then delete the branch. Okay, well, thanks for joining me, and I hope you had fun. We'll see you soon.